I'm gonna take a feels break here and describe how disgusting that house was. As I'd say, we all need a cringe right about now.
Woo! Yeah, baby! That's what I've been waiting for. That's what it's all about.
Hello, friends. Welcome back to ReddX, your source for the freshest daily cringe content anywhere on the internet. Promise swearsies, it's just a fact, and it's totally science. Go ahead and look it up if you want. Today we've got a story from my friend Publius over in the Discord. He also read a thing for Date & Dies. It's the most recent video over there. Maybe I'll leave a pinned comment for you or something. I'm interested to get into his bad date story today, however, so let's not delay any longer and we'll jump on into this thing. My first relationship experience, or the forging of the Hoob soul. Yeah, the second one's got more of a ring to it. What's good, everyone? It's Publius here. Some of you might know me from the Discord or whatnot. The recent r/DatingHell video got me thinking about the utterly tumultuous first relationship experience that I ever had, that sadly also remains the only one so far. Dude, that is a grave injustice. Hoobly is like one of the coolest people I know. Where the ladies at? Hook them up. Thanks so much to the all-powerful and ever-luminous ReddX for saying that he'd read this. Yeah, I say a lot of things, but now we're actually doing it, so that's cool. I appreciate it, dude. Please feel free to meme this whole tale into the ground, despite the feely feels that lie ahead. Elijah and I will meme it the best we can, but I don't know, sometimes you get in the feels. We'll just have to see how it goes. A quick aside before we start, the timeline of this is definitely not 100% accurate, as this time in my life is surrounded by a lot of haziness, no doubt due to me feeling like a bit of a wreck at the time, but I've done my best to recount it as accurately as possible. If anything seems out of place or is lacking detail, I did my best to remember every detail, but a lot of it is just static. Yeah, that happens. You've been smoking the devil's lettuce, haven't you, son? So saddle your feels belts and join us on this recounting of when my soul got kicked square in the nuts. Between the time when Susan sees YouTube and the rise of Reddit story narrators, there was an age undreamt of, and unto this, Publius, destined to wear the jeweled helm of cringe upon a troubled brow. It is I, ReddX, who alone can tell thee of his saga. Let me tell you of the days of high misadventure. I like that. I don't know what the hell that's supposed to be. But it's a good chance to use the Plague Doctor voice. Part 1, Foundations. I think it pertinent to lay down some context relating to my life, a scaffold upon which this tale is sculpted, so to speak, as understanding how my mind works a little will helpfully convey why the coming events affected me in the way that they did. A little bit of trauma dumping before we get into it, okay. You gotta pay the troll toll, you know?
You want the baby boy's hole, you gotta pay the troll toll. You gotta pay the troll toll to get in.
I did not have an easy childhood, which culminated in some rather extreme anxiety, fear of others, all-around reclusive and slightly paranoid mindset which permeated my daily life. I was abused as a child, struggled to make friends, and those that did would still often treat me ill, and experienced a form of bullying that I can only describe by equating it to The Truman Show, wherein people I had never seen before knew me by name, and they knew how to get under my skin. I mean, if this was the Elliot Rodger Manifesto, which you read on the channel, you just switch schools. Unfortunately, maybe you don't have the resources to do so, and you had to suffer through it, and yeah, that sucks, man. I'm sorry for it. But it did build you a killer sense of humor. Seriously, I really like kicking it with Publius in the Discord. And yes, even through all of this BS, I never once physically fought back. Hurting people is bad, and I wanted to be a good person. I also knew deep down that if I allowed myself to lash out like I had done but once before, that it would be a slippery slope, and I didn't want that. Needless to say, it took a long old time to come out of my shell. College helped, wherein I actually made some good friends who I'm still friends with to this day, and the brain be good now, recovery began. Hurting people is bad, But if those people are hurting other people, and you hurt that one person to make them stop hurting others, then the total amount of hurt in the world goes down. So maybe that's justice? What I do know is brain be good now doesn't work. My brain can only treat me good for 2-3 days at a time. I hope you have better luck with all that. I then moved off to university when I turned 20. The night before, I had sent one of my parents an email, finally addressing how they treated me before moving away from home for the first time, all of which culminated in an overwhelmingly lost Jenga game of the psyche, but I held fast, and I stuck to it, and after that first year, I was doing pretty damn well. There you go, man. Never too late to turn it back around, ain't that right? So second year rolls around, and I honestly felt the most like myself ever. Even to this day, I sometimes feel. Being social as heck, engaging in uni societies, loving the coursework, and just all around feeling real good. Surely nothing could disrupt that, right? Nah, couldn't possibly happen. Until part 2, the call to misadventure. I decided eventually to start my own society for dorky pursuits like D&D and whatnot. Got a few signups at the society's fair. People seemed pretty hyped for it. However, nobody really showed up to anything I tried to plan, so I eventually just shut it down. That's rough. But yeah, D&D do be like that sometimes. One of these people was the catalyst for this whole tale. A very pretty young lady who I eventually started to vibe really well with, never showing what her seemingly true nature was. For this tale, she needs an adequate alias, so we shall refer to her as Hydrangea, a beautiful flower that contains the deadly poison of cyanide. On top of this, it contains the word Hydra, as when she slays one man, 2 more will pop up to take his place. Quite literally, but more on that later. Bro, Hydrangea belonged to the streets. Don't get wrapped up with that. But how could you really know? Hindsight's 2020. So we first spent time together in activities that I ran for the society, becoming fast friends, the attendance whittling down until it was just us two. We saw each other almost every day and grew really close. Honestly, it all felt so genuine and easy. I think that's the most terrifying part to me. That's why you gotta watch the actions, not the words. At this time, I was seeing a local doctor about my inability to ever feel rested, which I now know was the first emergent sign of chronic fatigue syndrome, which worsened over the years, and sadly I still struggle with it to this day. Bro, maybe that's what I have. Repeated visits and blood tests for the doctors to essentially just shrug at me. Hydrangea learned about this and wanted to come with me, you know, for moral support. I still remember sitting in the waiting room, talking about how I knew they wouldn't find anything and how frustrating it all was, and she was nothing but supportive. Man, she really is putting her time in. I gotta wonder if she's actually as evil as she made out to be, or if this is just two people who couldn't learn to mesh. You got me hooked in real good now. I gotta see what happens. She held my hand as I got my blood taken, and the moment we walked out the front door, I felt safe enough in her company to let it all out and burst into tears. Without hope or restful sleep in sight, I felt nothing but despair, and Hydrangea was there for me and went out of her way to check in on me. You know when you feel you can truly, utterly trust someone? If only I knew. Like frolicking through a wheat field on a warm summer's day right before your foot slams down on a landmine. I mean, how long have you known her? I probably wouldn't have cried in front of her. But then again, you've done some serious bonding, and I can get it. She does seem super supportive. So, like, what's her end game here? So many questions. Eventually, we spent time together every day for about a 2-week period that culminated in the day. Ooh, he gonna bang it out now. She would be overhanging with me and the housemates late into the night, talking about life and our hopes and dreams, as youths all want to do. It's the whole point of youth, isn't it? To dream. She was picking up my emotions in the moment, somehow noticing when my mood shifted and being more and more attentive and considerate. asking if I was okay and being increasingly more supportive. You got me kind of scared. She's gonna turn out like the chicken Misery.
You murdered my misery!
Annie!
Around this time, a nasty cold was going around, and I had to cancel our plans to hang out because I had caught it. Yeah, I've also had something for a minute, but it's okay. Just drink lots of water and eat your vegetables. Hydrangea had, in fact, also caught this cold, so we thought we might as well be ill together. Romantic, but also really gross thinking back on it. Ew-mantic, if you will. Yeah, sure, why not? Me and my wife share diseases all the time. So she showed up with my favorite food from my favorite place in town, and we got to recovering, chilling out in my room, watching movies and YouTube and stuff, just talking shit and having fun. Keep in mind that we had spent time in each other's company outside of lectures and work every single day for 2 weeks at this point. This will sadly be pertinent later. She's just gathering info, bro. She's gonna stab you in the back, bro. Oh, I'm on the edge of my seat. I remember her being extremely obvious about her feelings on this day without just telling me directly. For real, people, just tell people how you feel. It's way less hassle. I mean, that's true, but most people ain't ready for that. Mind you, ROP had attended a gigantic LARP event the previous year, and I was showing Hydrangea photos of that event and whatnot, and I could vividly remember Hydrangea saying that she never thought she'd fall in love with a LARPer. Honestly, that's disrespect. Why you gotta talk down about the thing that I enjoy, you know? What's something you enjoy? Let me poop on it for you. It's got a negative connotation. It's not a good look. Shortly after, she asked me out of nowhere, "What's up?" I said, it's nothing. But she insisted that it was all right and she wanted to know. I told her that I really liked her, and though she was thinking of moving into our house the following year, I still wanted to give it a go because life is too short. She did seem concerned about that at first, but then said that she was down and we should go on an official date, remarking that I was pretty smooth in that moment, something that I, to this day, would never describe myself as. Alright, dude. Smooth is overrated. OP clarifies, yes, I'm about as smooth as a coarse and overgrown gravel path. Yeah, that's called bubbly. That's called buoyant, bouncy, boisterous. Those are the personalities I usually get along with. So we kept watching movies, but things were obviously a little different now. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, boy.
We were both way more smiley and upbeat, a heightened sense of closeness. When it came time for bed, I asked if she was crashing here, and she made a sort of side-eyed expression like, "Well, I'm already lying in your bed," and I was totally cool with that. We got comfy, and regardless of whether or not she was expecting something to happen, again, peeps, just use your words, no more weird, cryptic stuff. It sucks. But I am an old-fashioned romantic, and I don't really do anything casual because it's just never really vibed with me. Samesies, honestly. As I've said often, the expectation is often better than the reality. Let's just leave it there. Besides, I didn't have a rubber anywhere in my place, and I would never go in without a jacket, so to speak, so we just chilled out in bed and couldn't stop talking and laughing at dumb stuff and just chatting about life. I told her that I was over the moon to have met someone, as I'd not had a grain of interest from ladies that I'd liked in the past, and I was starting to actually think I was gross or unpleasant to be around or something. I can confirm that your personality's pleasant enough. Publius also doesn't sound like he smells bad, so... I don't know. Good stuff takes time. Eventually, I fell asleep, and I awoke to a peaceful morning with soft light streaming in through the blinds and the lovely Hydrangea rousing from sleep beside me. I had to pop out to university for half an hour, and I was happy for Hydrangea to just chill at mine for a bit, unto which I would return with some cold medicine for both of us. Felt damn good that day, knowing that I would head back to my house to see the lady who I felt so overwhelmingly lucky to have met. But then, I got home. Oh my God, she robbed you. Oh, let's see. I headed up to the top of the townhouse where we lived. The place was peaceful and quiet in the golden light morning. The other housemates either out at uni or taking a lie-in. This was the calm before the storm. I got in and I handed Hydrangea some of the medicine I'd bought and carried on chatting away as normal, thinking everything was fine. Suddenly she looked at me and said, "I think we should wait." I was a little perturbed by this, but nevertheless, I asked why. To this she replied with calmness and clarity, as if it were the most normal thing to say ever. "Well, I'm seeing like 5 other guys right now, and I'm not sure who I'm going to pick." 5, dude?
Oh, hell no!
That's so many. Nah, I think I'm good. She does belong in the streets, dude. I wouldn't get involved with this. If you did cut her loose for the LARPing thing, at least cut her loose for this. Like I'm supposed to stand in line and be like, "Ooh, I hope she picks me." Whatever. Get out of here. I'm gonna go find a girl who's actually about it, you know? So this brings us to part 3, Dukha. Dukha. I don't know how to say that. Google says it's a Pali word which appears in Sanskrit as Dukha, and it is most often translated as pain, suffering, stress, or disease. This concept is one of the fundamental teachings of Buddhism. Bro, I love this. We learn it every day. Well, this news hit me like a torrent. After everything, all her consideration for my health and well-being, how close we'd grown, and how much she's convinced me that she cared about me, she made that statement just as casually as could be. And those words carved me apart. Bro, this is a rough one to pick through, honestly. Maybe she just doesn't know how to tell dudes no. Maybe this is a polyamory type of thing. It's not something that I'd put up with, I'll be very clear about that. And I could definitely see why OP would be surprised by it, right? At the very least, I can hope you don't wait around. Thanks for assisting me in time of need, but I think it's best if we're just friends that never talk to each other. I recall trying to understand, to make some sense of what the hell I had just heard. A blurry mess of, "But you said you liked me. How could you do this so calmly? And how were you logistically even making something like that work?" This is the first question that came to my mind. There's so many people to deal with. As you can surely understand, I fell apart. Strangely, she consoled me. She held me after saying that. It's a little hazy for me, but I remember her still saying romantic things aimed at me, and not once realizing that she had made me feel this way. So is she just like a master manipulator, or does she actually feel guilty? I hate to pin all the blame on her because she's obviously carrying around her own type of damage, but we're only like halfway through the story, so how could OP possibly reconcile this? Strangely, she too had become emotional, talking about how her first partner treated her horribly and that she was worried that she'd never be able to love again. Yeah, like I said, deeply damaged. I don't know if it's just about the partners neither. What's your relationship like with your parents? But whatever, I'm here for the cringe, not the psychology. She was seeing 6 fellas at once, without any of them knowing, and in her mind, still managed to make it about herself. At this point, I think OP's in a emotional state, not really able to look at it rationally. She's trying to convey her insecurities to you and open up. But yeah, you can't really receive that message when your heart has just been broken into a million pieces. To her credit, at least she was upfront with you about it. She's also been seeing you for the past 2 weeks, at least every day. So surely you rank higher than some of these other 5 dudes. But I guess the question you really gotta ask yourself is this emotional baggage worth sorting through to me? And really, she's caring, compassionate. We don't know much about her besides that. But part of me thinks that compassion comes from some deeply held damage. I am not licensed or capable of fixing this, so yeah, probably you'd have to let her go. It's the healthy thing to do, to say goodbye right now. OP continues. At this point, I was in what I tend to call autopilot. I get like that when big bad things happen, and this was before my years of therapy. She said she felt terrible for what happened and that I should go with her to a gig that she was going to that night because she was worried about me. On autopilot, I just sort of agreed. I'm having a real hard time sussing out her motives. I do feel sort of bad for OP, but in a moment that should have sparked fight or flight, you chose freeze. And generally, that's not the best choice that you could make. So it was after this invitation that Hydrangea left, and I was stuck in my own head. I did what I always do in these moments, and I called my parents. My mom had nothing but sorrow for what I'd experienced and was so upset on my behalf and gave me some much-needed counsel, though it didn't alleviate the emotional pain that I was in. I needed to talk some more, so I called my dad, who was on holiday abroad at the time, but it was technically a bit of a crisis. I called him and told him what happened, and his reply was, well, let's say it was the opposite of my mother's. According to him, the fact that I had a lady in my bed and did nothing meant that this entire experience was 110% my fault. Oh, here we go. Some hardcore boomer logic. The bizarre accusation that me not trying anything meant she likely thought I was gay now and that I totally blew it really wasn't what I needed to hear in that very vulnerable moment. Dads generally aren't great at stuff like this, but this is extra terrible. I want to take a quick aside here and say that my relationship with my father is not like this at all anymore. Not in the slightest. Over the years, we've talked and grown so much closer, and this strange perspective towards parenting has given me a way to genuine communication, and honestly, I am so glad to have him in my life. A boy needs his dad, I won't argue with that. And I'm definitely glad you two are learning how to interface, even if it did take a few years. So later that day, I went to the gig, and I remember having to turn around and go home twice because I'd forgotten things that I needed. That's how out of it I was. But again, I was on autopilot. My brain was trying to defend itself from this spark that lit the powder keg of almost 2 decades of social maltreatment, and I was honestly just a complete mess. It kind of felt like I was being puppeted around by my brain, whilst the real me just phased in and out. It was a very strange and disconcerting experience. Eventually I arrived at Hydrangea's house and went to the venue. Eventually gonna snap out of this, right? Eventually you're gonna cut the cord and be like, I don't know what's wrong with you, but I don't want to see you again. I appreciate what you've done for me, but separating is probably the best thing for both of us. So this would have been a great gig if the circumstances were different. Some of my favorite bands playing, loads of people to meet, all that good stuff. I recall Hydrangea mostly just disappearing off into the crowd and leaving me spun out at the edge of the venue, sitting against a wall. At one point, she tried to romantically take me by the hand and lead me into the mosh. I recall a moment of lucidity at this time, telling her very directly to let go of me. It's comforting to know that there was at least one brain cell in my head that was not going to take any of her crap. Yeah, I don't even know why you ended up here in the first place. Brain is regaining function and it's a beautiful thing to see. So afterwards, I auto-puppet back to her place and sit in the living room, at which point my body started to really freak out. It's the only time I've had full body tremors before, and it was extremely frightening. Dude, what the f*** is that? Go home! Why are you still subjecting yourself to this? The body tremors are just your body trying to make you vibrate yourself out the front door. I recall Hydrangea's housemates being very concerned in that moment. I guess I was meant to sleep in their house that night. Don't really remember if that was planned or not, but as Hydrangea was worried about me, she led me through to her bed, which was a grim mattress on the floor of her very messy room. Couple more red flags, even though we're past the point of needing them. My memory of that night is really uncomfortable. I couldn't move. My body seemingly shutting down or freezing up like a deer in headlights, and through it all, Hydrangea holding me, kissing my shoulder, saying, everything was gonna be okay. Yes, I agree with that. As soon as you get away from this woman, everything will start being fine again. She's trying to pull you into the poop pile. Don't let it happen! I'm sure each and every one of you can understand how utterly bewildering this experience was. I was neurologically on power saving mode, and I had no idea how to compute what was even happening. The next day, I shared a taxi with her to get home. I still remember her taking my hand as I stepped out, a look of what would pass for genuine concern on her face. I stumbled home, and this section of memory fades to black. I still believe that she was genuinely concerned. She gets genuinely concerned of everyone that she meets, and that's why she can't say no to relationships. Part 4, cringe intermission. I'm gonna take a feels break here and describe how disgusting that house was. As I'd say, we all need a cringe right about now.
Woo! Yeah, baby! That's what I've been waiting for. That's what it's all about.
That's right. Bring it back around. Their shared bathroom was a condemned criminal origins vibe room that was mostly empty, with a toilet pretty much right in the middle of the room. Were you not worried of getting murdered at all? The flush was faulty, and the whole house, rather than just pay for a plumber to fix it, opted to put all of their toilet paper post-use into a waste bin at the side of the toilet. And this bin was overwhelmingly full. Oh, nasty. You got poop paper all over the floor. Take your pants off, get in the shower. Wash your mud button. Why are you even still using toilet paper at this point? Whatever. Again, I can't fix this. 4 people in this house, and not one of them did a damn thing about the poo-poo paper overflowing from the garbage bin. They were content to collaboratively create a densely packed poop and toilet paper sarcophagus. Then bother to pick up the phone and get a plumber in. Looking back on this experience, this is one of the many red flags that tells me I dodged a toxic and very stinky bullet. No arguments here, man. That's like red flag number 5, at least. 10 if we count all the other dudes she's dating. That level of neglect and uncleanliness is profoundly vile, and I'm so glad that I never had to set foot in that horrible place ever again. If they neglect the place that they live that much, just imagine how much they neglect their own well-being. Because you see, Hydrangea was giving the love to other people that she refused to give herself. I think her relationship with her parents was unhealthy, and the only way she learned to properly interface with people and get some semblance of validation is to dote on them, which is why she does it to everybody that she meets. Am I close? Suffice to say, she's carrying baggage around. I don't truly believe that she's a terrible person, but yeah, she's got some things to work through. And at this young age especially, I think that's perfectly normal. At the end of it all, I hope she got it figured out. So yes, that brings us to part 5, Aftermath. This is the millennium of Aftermath, and there ain't gonna be nothing after that. Give me one more platinum plaque of fuck rap, you can have it back. Following this nightmare were several extremely strange and surreal weeks. I recall breaking down in my housemate's arms at one point. That dude was a great guy. Still friends with him to this day, and he was very much there for me at this time, as were others in the house. You know who else is a great guy, Hoob? You! Look at you wearing your heart on your sleeve. I can't even shame you for it. I'm just happy that you feel this open and honest with these people. We're not doing it to strangers, right? So probably it is fine. I recall having a lecture and just not being able to hold in my emotions. My course leader took me into an empty lecture room, got me a cup of tea, and talked with me. That man was a real angel. Took time out of his work schedule because one of his students was clearly in a crisis. He just listened. In that moment, I felt that I had somehow screwed everything up and lost the best friend that I ever had, clearly blind to the truth of the situation due to my emotions. I'd like to say that you guys would have made good friends, but that would probably be a lie too. She'll tell you all about these Nigerian cousins that she blew in a public bathroom stall, and you'll get all broken up about it, and it's just not gonna work out. The best option here is to clear out. The course leader also offered advice and said that I should head home for Easter break a week early and not worry about the outstanding coursework and just take some time for myself. I haven't seen him since I graduated, and yeah, I do miss him. Seems like a real one, honestly. I mentioned earlier that Hydrangea was likely to be moving into our house the following year. The deposit had already been put in, so I thought, screw it. I'm gonna be ironclad and strong here, and we're gonna clear the air in an effort to try and keep the peace. I called Hydrangea and said we should meet up just to clear things up, and we met at one of the uni studios and went off to a cafe. She honestly seemed like a gray wreck that day. Signs of guilt, perhaps? Unfortunately, her future actions disprove that. Again, more on that a bit later. She does seem like a gray wreck, though. The only thing that adds any color to her life that lets her know that she's still alive is caring for other people, or pretending to care for other people. I guess we'll see. I was still partially on autopilot for these few weeks, which is worth a mention. We talked stuff out, and I said I was cool with whatever, as I knew I would eventually dust off these emotions in time. After this, we wandered around town and got some food, and even though things were awkward-ish, other than that, I felt like the peace could be kept. Despite everything, if I were to be sharing a house with this person, I wanted to eschew any chance of weird housemate grief for the sake of others who were staying as much as myself. It was during this time that she suddenly told me, "I really would like us to be a thing." To which I responded something like, "No, you don't. Otherwise, you wouldn't be seeing 5 other people." There's that one brain cell again. Man, really ought to give that guy a raise.
Where is everybody? I'm the only brain cell left. Well, at least I have my books.
He is putting in work, keeping you safe from yourself. She just needs the validation from you, OP. She's not interested in you as a human being. Again, I say the best solution is to run the other way. Don't even hang out, clear the air, go to lunch. Be a ghost to each other. Even if you live in the same house, who cares? We'll both die in here together. I also recall at this time that she told me that she was talking with a man in Mexico, and she was gonna go and see him over summer break, despite messing around with possibly over 6 guys back on her home turf. Madness. Hookup culture L's, dude. They're all around you. It's a good thing you didn't pork her, especially unwrapped. I don't want to presume that she's diseased, but I'm going to. Weirdly, though, I was still in at this time. She made a remark that shaved faces were more kissable, so I shaved my face. Ugh, I don't know why. Maybe I thought it'd fix things or make her choose me. I literally have no idea. I did have a female friend tell me off for doing it, though, and she had a point. I think it was the Honorable Benjamin Franklin that once said, "He that would shave the beard for the sake of punani deserves neither." It's something like that. But yeah, don't let her punk you like this. Now we are getting a clearer picture. Now she's got her claws in and just won't let go. Strangely, after this, Hydrangea continued to be around. I guess it was because she was to be a future housemate, but she would still just rock up to our place. It was during one of these hangouts that further revelations unfurled. Oh boy, here it comes. Give me the juice. I had made a very good friend this year. Guy was a great cook and was very passionate about life in every way. Whoa! Who would I see upon his arm in my own kitchen? Outwardly, I was blank, but inwardly, this just sucked. I can't remember if it was before or after, where some dear friends of mine came over to console me after this horrid experience, informing me that she had been seeing this friend for a good while now, at the same time as me. Was he one of the 5? Or yet another poor soul unwittingly being subjected to the poison? He vanished after a while, wasn't with Hydrangea, so she had clearly shrugged him off, and I have to assume that he, being a gentle soul, was a wreck. And I never saw him again. Oh, here she comes. Watch out, boy, she'll chew you up. Oh, here she comes. She's a man-eater. I wouldn't even catch feelings about it, OP. At this point, you shrug your shoulders and go, that town bicycle. Everybody's getting a ride, I guess. Good for you. Good for you. Wear a rubber.
All right.
Following this, she said that her friend was in town and she wanted me to meet him. Apparently, he was a great dude. As I was still in autopilot, I puppet bodied over to meet them both. Nah, dude, we can't blame autopilot weeks later, all right? I'm gonna pump the brakes on that shit right now. You were being too nice. You were still hoping that this could work and trying to build bridges. Let me tell you now, let it go. She'll respect you more for it. You'll respect yourself more for it. What good could possibly come of this? She's gonna bang this dude and make you watch. At this point, I am begging you, OP, to just leave it alone. So what met OP when he arrived was a strange hippie beard who was very much spaced out and unusual. I don't recall much about him other than him just being an unusual presence. Like, he had the same energy as Bigfoot looking toward the camera in the Patterson-Gimlin footage. I think it was that night where a bunch of us, including my friends, went out to a metal bar to hang out and things continued to get stranger. I felt very off that whole evening, and we all headed back to mine to chill in the kitchen. Eventually, everyone left except for Hydrangea and Hippie Beard. Oh my god, here it comes. You're gonna experience firsthand free love. I don't want this. I never wanted this. It was at this point that she seemed upset, so I, as anyone would do, asked what was wrong. Hippie Beard said something like, "You're adding fuel to the fire, man." And Hydrangea told me to stop it. I asked her what she meant, and she replied, "That!" as she began to tear up. Oh yeah, she's a mess. Hey, can you get out of my house now? OP says, okay, so don't try and be nice. Got it. It was at this point that she got very weepy, proclaiming that she had hurt me. I don't know, but maybe in this moment she really did feel bad about everything. Maybe, like me, she also had a pretty messed up life, and deep down there was a good person there. I like to think so. Though that being said, the tears stopped very quickly after that, so it's sort of hard to say. It's a hard call to make, honestly. Even if it is just crocodile tears, that might be one of her defense mechanisms because of her poor upbringing. And I guarantee you there was a poor upbringing. But at a certain point, I have to realize that I can't help you sort through all this baggage. It's not up to me to fix it. It's up to you to fix it. And so far, you haven't really even tried. This situation abruptly ended with my housemate coming in and proclaiming that they were trying to sleep. And could they all just get the hell out of the house? I had to agree. For some reason, it took them both ages to leave. Bro, they was plotting on you. Hippie Beard talked to me about how he knew how I was feeling. And I told him that my smile was genuine. It wasn't, lol. And he just stared at me. Like how a lizard stares, you know? Black eyes, so cold and lifeless it don't even seem real until he come up and bite you. Halfway down the stairwell, staring up at me like I caught Bigfoot jerking it in the woods. It was just surreal. Dude, I'm pretty sure that guy's fried out of his mind. Eventually they did get out of my goddamn house and I went to bed. We had a house party in one of the following days, and at it, I met a really good dude who we'll call Chill Guy. Wise beyond his years, incredibly good to hang out with, and I felt like I'd possibly made a good friend. Bro, he's also banging Hydrangea, isn't he? I know where this is going. As soon as you introduce any other male character, I'm like, yeah, they've all dipped their wick. You know when you meet a new friend and you become best buds super fast? Ramtide. It was one of those. He was heading to an event that I too was going to the following day, yet when I arrive, guess who is on his arm? I'm at a loss for words. I felt very yucky, but I dealt with it. Chill Guy seemed happy and I was happy for him. But I still felt utterly horrendous that day. I had attended the event with another friend who we'll call Liege, as he had strong huzzah for the realm energy, like a knight straight out of a tale of old. Great dude, super eclectic personality. Sadly, as before, Chill Guy also disappeared from her side, and he too, I never saw again. I saw a pattern emerge, and it made me so sad. swinging from branch to branch like an arachnid orangutan. Yeah, branch to branch quite literally in this case. The event led to the same metal bar as before, and I didn't feel any better as the afternoon went on. Quite worse, in fact. Yet another friend of mine was on Hydrangea's arm, a repeating and invasive pattern that I'd begun to notice. Is she angling on you, trying to make you upset, or is this just happenstance? Little bit of the old confirmation bias. So Liege and I pieced out and went back to mine, and I was very visibly not okay. We got burgers and watched Layer Cake, and he decided not to leave until he was 100% sure that I was alright. At some point, I lay down on the floor and sighed, just feeling so done with it all. It was at that moment that my body turned off. Below the neck, I was suddenly immobile, and I began to panic, telling Liege to call an ambulance. It lasted about a minute, in which I struggled in vain to move my body. Eventually, feeling did return to my limbs, and I was able to move. I was very upset by this, but I eventually felt more normal, and told Liege that he was good to head home if he wanted. This is the only time that I've ever experienced anything like this. It was like a full system reboot. The tiny cells in my body wearing yellow hard hats deciding, these pressure readings are off the charts. We're gonna have to reboot the system. Get the keys for the master switch and let's do a full system reboot. And they all scurried around as the pointy top hoot alarm from the cartoon sounded off across my body. Maybe system reboot was just what you need. Once you're all rebooted, your balls drop down and you're like, I don't need that chick no more. I believe it was the following morning where I blinked awake and felt completely fine. Not a single bad vibe in sight. It was a relief. All that turmoil, all those horrible feelings had seemingly finally been processed. Processed into waste, which they are. Especially for a chick like that. No, sir! I can't help you figure it out. I gotta stuff my own to figure out. Though it seemed like something had been lost during this process, over the following years I realized that I wasn't able to register anything relating to relationships afterwards. If a lady showed interest in me, I would just not see it. Hell, a lady I had a crush on from my course even once got up from her friend group and bounded over to me with just the biggest grin on her face. And with a ton of interactions with her looking back, it was like extremely clear that she liked me too, but I don't know, NPC faced it, as I did every other time. I just wasn't able to register it. Like whatever lobe in the brain is responsible for making you able to naturally engage in relationship adjacent behavior just died in that reset. Trauma can rewire your brain quite heavily, even partitioning sections of it off just to protect the whole. Perhaps the gray matter that processes that stuff is boarded up and abandoned with caution tape crossing over the entrance. The hard hat wearing brain cells going about their jobs, casting weary glances at it as they pass. Quite an interesting theory. And also a hilarious visual. For years after, it's been the same. I spent time with ladies that I had feelings for. All I ever felt was overthinking, panic, an all-encompassing fear, either just trying to stifle it or going home and crying. I clearly was not ready for a relationship. Well, it's healthy that you recognize that at least. This is when I went to therapy. Over several years, my therapist and I deconstructed this experience, as well as the life experiences that led up to that point, and slowly, I began to recover. For the longest time, I thought it was always my fault, and therapy helped me to understand that not only was that not the case, but this stuff just happens sometimes, and this helped me to let go of it all. Yeah, there was some devious stuff going on, but at the end of the day, I really do think it was just two people who couldn't see eye to eye. But regardless, this brings us to our last part number 6, meditations. I have not had a relationship experience since this ordeal. I just can't seem to meet anyone. Being stuck in my house on disability from my condition doesn't help, but it seems whoever's the DM running my life just keeps rolling higher than me. But it's all good. Because the true victory here has been the relationship that I have with myself. My sense of self is ironclad, and I find myself frequently truly enjoying being me. That's a very special thing. This experience was emotionally devastating, but as I moved forward from it, I reforged myself bit by bit until the Hooblius emerged from the forge, stronger than ever before. As for Hydrangea, well, I have no idea what happened to her. She did indeed live with us for a year, but just didn't really interact with any of us. It's been a long time since then. Plenty of time for everyone to grow up and do a lot of changing. I hope that wherever she is, she has gotten therapy, grown up, and is truly happy in whatever path her life is taking. That, or she got sent to jail for theft from all those damn hearts she stole. My personal theory, she started an OnlyFans. She's an e-thought and has all the simps she could possibly desire. Is that a good thing? Is that a terrible thing? That's up to you! So to sum this entire tale up, I will use an analogy from my experience and knowledge as a metalworker, a particularly strenuous yet incredible historical method. To become usable, iron ore must be ground into grain and poured through a bloomery of intense, uncompromising heat that melts it down, separating the slag from the iron. The resulting billet is then hammered to condense it, then heated and folded until it becomes strong from packing carbon into it. Yeah, I heard they fold it over 1,000 times and sell the finest Japanese steel to the mall katana guy. This experience did grind me into dust, and the ensuing months of processing and recovery put me through the bloomery, the waste slag of emotion eventually separating from myself. Over the years of therapy, I revisited that fire, processing everything with each fold as the carbon content gained from therapy strengthened me until finally I became so emotionally cohesive and solid that it affected me no longer. It's good. We live, we learn. Before this time, I was but ore. Through the fires of adversity, I was forged anew. Now I am strong. Now I am steel. I think this was the lesson contained within the whole thing. My brother put it best, that your relationship with yourself is the heart of your universe. This whole thing sent me on an introspective journey and taught me what I want out of a relationship with another person. And in doing so, I learned what I want and need for myself. I might not have a partner, but I have myself, and that's an extremely good thing to have. I mean, having a partner is definitely a wonderful thing. It is helpful, but all in due time, and I'm glad you're not settling for just anyone. You gotta know what you want, you gotta know what you don't want. And it seems like this experience helped you figure that out. So I hope that this conclusion was helpful to anyone who might be having a rough time in the relationship world at this moment. You're doing fine. And if it's really getting to you, remember that you are loved, you are worthy, and you most definitely deserve it. That's a fact, and it's totally science. Smiley face. Promise. Swearsies. If you've hung on till the end here, well, I greatly appreciate it. This was actually a little hard to type up at points. Though I'm long past it, revisiting those memories, those moments, was a little like connecting to the emotional state of the time. But I'm glad that I did it, and it was surprisingly therapeutic. Red, I hope that this tale didn't oof you too much. I know it was a pretty sad one, but I appreciate you reading it all the same, dude. I did think it was sad, but there was also like a delicate dance between these two people, and I wanted to see how it would turn out. And at the end of this all, years later, I'm sure that you've both become better people for it. As always, if you're brave enough to write it, I'm happy to read it. And really, thank you for your contribution. Speaking of ReddX, hey, if you enjoyed this story and all the others on the channel, maybe support him on the Patreon, huh? God, I really would love that. Why don't you do that? He's a hard-working man, so I simply must chill. Yeah, this YouTube thing harder than it looks, I'll tell you that. Maybe this tale made you feel a little bad for old Hoobie, but you know what would really help cheer me up? Supporting ReddX on Patreon. Smooth. I'm gonna give him a list. So thanks, everyone, and until next time, keep on hoobin'. How's that work? Good outro? Yeah, no? I'll workshop it. Sounds about right. Overall, yes, a couple of people who simply weren't meant to be at this moment in time. Maybe if all this happened during current year, you could be like, oh, We're just in a polyamorous relationship now, but if that's not what you're looking for, then I'm glad you got the hell out. I know I would have done. If you do want to see some more DatingHell videos, we got the playlist on the end card for you. Always remember, friends, that you are loved, you are worthy, you definitely deserve it, and I shall see you in the next one. So until then, bye-bye. Go ahead and cut them open. It's gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine. Promise, swears easy.